Hi everyone, and welcome to the Icehouse podcast. Today we are on our Grit campaign, and our new messaging is Grit goes further together. So we're actually on shoot right now, which is very exciting, and I am with Shane Anselmi from the the Overland Footwear Group. He is the founder and CEO, so thank you, Shane, for being here. And then I have Melanie Spencer, who is the co-CEO at Socialites. So thanks guys for being here. They are our heroes, new faces of the Icehouse, which is very exciting. And it's an exciting day today. We're just sort of kicking into it. But on the whole theme of grit, my first question, and I'll go to you, Shane, is what does grit mean to you?
Grit to me means persistence. So it's that X factor that you have where you just don't give up. And if I go back over all the years I've been in business, it's probably the thing that has allowed us to sort of go through those downturns, failures. I fell flat on my face at quite a young age, and I think it was a great thing because it gave me wisdom beyond my years. But really, grit and persistence. That persistence really allowed me to get back on my feet and grow this organisation.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer. And what about you, Mel? What does grit mean to you?
Grit is actually one of my favourite words. So I love that it's the theme of your next campaign. Success in business does not come without having grit and determination. And as Shane just said, it's, when you have those days, when you question yourself, when you have the naysayers, or when things are tough, that's when grit really kicks in. And I think as entrepreneurs, you have that sort of undeniable inner fire, which is that grit that sort of gets you through. And I think, entrepreneurs have almost like a innate positivity as well. So grit almost sometimes it has a negative connotation, but you can, as entrepreneurs, you can flip it and it can actually be really positive. And as entrepreneurs, we are optimists. So when times get tough, you can see that bigger picture, and that's what gets you through.
I think you make a really, really good point. As entrepreneurs, we are born optimists, and you can see opportunity everywhere. And just in the note I sent to Bryar yesterday, seeing opportunity everywhere, it means that you often get out of your comfort zone and do things that you probably don't consider the downside quite so much. And so many times, just being that optimist, seeing opportunity, I'll get myself into a position right out of my comfort zone, and things can go wrong. And it's really that grit, that persistence that pulls you out the other side.
Yeah. It's those amazing glimpses of, your vision is there, and it's those glimpses, and you go, right, I can do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing answers. And that's question one. And if those are the answers to question one, then we're in for a good podcast. So thank you guys. That's awesome. Maybe with you, Melanie, what does 2021 look like compared to 2020? Now, we won't mel on COVID too much, but hey, bring it up if you need to. But it was a massive year. What does 2021 look like compared to that?
Yeah, so because of COVID, our world in the advertising industry has really been turned upside down in a really great way for us as a digital agency. It's really sped up things, and as an industry, things are being turned on its head. So it's a completely different beast to what it was even 1 year ago before COVID. So as a digital agency, Wendy and I really want to be the trailblazers in that space, and be at the forefront of the industry, where things will start being digital first. It's happening all over the world. It's going to be happening in New Zealand and Australia. It's happening in APAC. So we want to be that agency where brands come to us first, and then out to sort of the other bigger agencies. So it's completely changed for us, and also the clients and brands that we work with, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and I love that positive spin on it, and it is a positive thing that actually it's sped up some elements of business where people have gone, I need this more to stay, forefront. So that's cool.
And also for the smaller businesses, and we work with, we've really kicked into working with our SMBs, and we've built an SMB arm now. And out of COVID, one of our sort of big passions and remits was digitising these smaller businesses who really needed it. So through Cohort, we put about 130 smaller tour operators through a program, which meant that they had this robust social media strategy, so that now they're hopefully ready with the Australian bubble opening. And also through our influencer arm, the social club, we put about 130 tour operators. We matched 130 tour operators with 130 content creators. So now they've got like a year's worth of content.
Wow.
So, out of a very scary time, this industry has flipped, and we've seen the opportunity, and we're going for it.
Yeah, cool. Amazing. And cool to sort of, your example is hitting on an industry that really has suffered through COVID.
For sure.
But how you can use what you guys do to help them through it is pretty awesome, and great opportunities for you guys. Yeah.
It's a very special thing for our team to be involved in, and they are so passionate. They talk to these business owners who have been through a really tough time, and holding their hand through it, which is, we're doing some good, which is great, which is nice for us.
Definitely. I love that. That's cool. What about you, Shane? 2021 versus 2020.
2021 has started incredibly well. We've got new direction both in our merchant stores and Mi Piace. There's some trends happening in footwear. The sort of the combat boot sneaker business for us is getting bigger and bigger. So we're very lucky in that we have our own facility, our own dedicated plant that we own in China, as well as importing shoes out of Spain, Italy, Portugal. But interesting, just going back to what you were saying, Mel, scary times. You go back to March, April last year, and we employ 500 people around mainly New Zealand, Australia, and also China as well. And the cash got turned off. So suddenly you've got this huge payroll to meet every week after week after week.
Wow.
And it was scary times. So, but what it has done is we've learned to do things without travel. My travel schedule is up to a couple of 100,000 miles a year. I haven't been doing it. My wife Louise, who runs our design team, she hasn't been travelling, so we're using WGSN, just a world fashion forecasting site. We're dealing with our suppliers in Europe, as well as our plant in China, just using Teams, Zoom and so on, and we're running the business, I believe, better than we've ever run it,
awesome.
Just because these changes have been forced on us. So
that's cool, and
it's good.
It's sort of what we've been talking about, how the whole thing actually ended up speeding up a lot of things that probably would have eventually happened in terms of more remote working and all that sort of stuff, but it was forced upon us. And for some businesses, it actually has ended up meaning it's easier to manage, wider global companies and that sort of thing. So that's very cool to hear. Awesome. So going on from that, do you have an example, Shane, of a challenge where you've had to use grit, or grit to solve it or overcome it, that you've experienced, a challenge you've experienced where grit got you through?
Probably, if I go back to my early years, this is something a story I share with people I talk to, and often business groups I talk to. I'm the son of quite a successful entrepreneur myself, but seeing my dad sort of had some discount shoe stores, 7 or 8 discount shoe stores, and a factory, the biggest factory in New Zealand for a while, Fabia, based in Tikawiti. Well, I wanted to become a farmer, so I wanted to be like my uncles. I just loved I loved the farm life, all the holidays I was out there. So I went to Massey and did agriculture, and then 2 or 3 years into this degree, early 80s, I kind of found out that everything is out of your control as a farmer. You're at the mercy of exchange rate, commodity prices, and the weather. So seeing what my dad did looked quite appealing. I borrowed some machinery from him, opened my own small plant. I think I was 20. I set a goal to be worth a certain amount by the time I was 25 and to achieve so much. So I opened a small factory, grew it to about 60 people, opened 4 retail stores. Not being content with that, I got into the restaurant business with 2 partners, and opened 2 restaurants, and also started developing industrial property. So all of these things with a huge amount of energy and marketing, I guess, nous, but not a lot of foundation. And then the 87 share market crash hit, and we lost our biggest tenant in the industrial park. Business confidence crumbled, and I lost all the businesses. I had to sell my house. I just met my gorgeous wife-to-be. She was pregnant, and I had to move in with her in-laws.
Wow.
And I go back to that time and think, this was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. I had business knowledge beyond my years. I've done things more than most people my age, and I made a conscious decision going forward that if I was to be involved in business, it would be on a foundation of very good process and people, really engaging people. And that lesson has stayed with me ever since.
Wow. Such like a milestone, I don't know if it's the right word, but something that happens in your life that you would never forget.
Pivotal time, so it made me change direction.
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. Thanks for that, Shane. What about you, Mel? Is there an example you've got?
Yeah, look, there are a couple of stories that I can tell, both personal and professionally. 10 years ago, personally, my husband and I went our separate ways, and I really decided then and there that I was going to invest in my career, and it was like go hard or go home, really. And that was a very difficult time, but I was just head down and decided that I would move as quickly as possible, and there was some serious grit and determination that went on there. Most recently, and I don't want to talk too much about COVID, but when COVID did hit, it was, I felt like I was on a training floor, with clients going, we're going to hold. And, we lost 30% of our business.
Wow.
And I just remember going, this is not the time to go quiet on your community. What are you talking about? Don't do it. But, Wendy and I were just heads down. We have never pitched in so many ideas, and that's where our creativity and our team's creativity as well. We were just like all these ideas, and they just came flowing out of us. So a time where everyone was absolutely petrified, we were just like, right, let's do this. And we ended up acquiring the social club during that time as well. So, out of that, we became stronger.
Yeah, totally. Making some bold moves. And
very bold.
Yeah, and that time is definitely grit, like taking on another business as well as keeping your other one afloat is no easy feat. So
all our due diligence over Zoom.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Over chips and beer and Zoom. And also trying to just, get our business, keep it going, and so lots of fun.
Yeah, amazing stories. Awesome. Okay, turning more into owner-manager program. So for those listening, owner-manager program is our flagship program here at the Icehouse. It's for business owners, those that are very involved in their companies or have a share in a company, and it really is a deep dive into all things business. It helps also in terms of, so they work on you in the business, you outside of the business, your lifestyle, what you bring to the business, so many different elements. And both Shane and Melanie have been on Owner Manager Program at different times. Shane was on Owner Manager Program 5, was it?
Number 5.
Wow. And Melanie was on Owner Manager Program 51. So that's pretty cool. But in terms of that, now, Shane, this is obviously going many years back, but how has things changed, or how did things change in business maybe one business and one lifestyle example
Sure.
after owner-manager program?
Sure. So, believe it or not, 18 years ago, 2003, it was quite new back then, but
Yeah.
it was a wonderful process for me. 20 like-minded business owners, a lot of businesses, quite a few much bigger than me. I could tick lots of boxes as these amazing people with knowledge came through and told us, the great way to run businesses. We had a good functioning board, a good process in place, lots of things we were doing quite well. But one thing really intrigued me when an HR guy came through and he talked about taking a health check on your company by doing 360s. And I'd always thought that 360s were I always thought that HR was sort of soft, fluffy stuff. You didn't really need it. For me, it was all about energy and giving people goals. But anyway, after we employed this guy, we did some 360s. We're about a third the size we are now. And what came back really shocked me a little bit. People liked the energy in the company, but there wasn't a huge amount of recognition and joy.
Wow.
So off the back of that, I employed an HR manager, a North American. And the first thing that she told me is, Shane, we've got to sort our values out. And she explained to me that values are how people treat each other, how they treat each other and how they treat our customers. So we sent this list out to all of our employees back then, 50 odd words. We came back with the 6 that we've got. And so many businesses do what we did all of that time ago, and they'll put their values on a wall or in a drawer and probably forget about them. But what we do is we talk about values, we celebrate them on a weekly basis. So
Amazing.
Mel and Bryar, if you guys were working in a store and Mel, you decided to drop a pair of shoes off to a customer on the way home, Bryar, we asked for values nomination. So Bryar might nominate Mel for proactivity and right in the centre to do just what you did. We get those stories every week and publish them in our newsletter, and believe it or not, we get between 100 and 140 of those stories each and every week which we publish.
Wow.
And so that's become the basis of this culture of engagement we've got, and ever since then we've been a finalist in New Zealand Best Workplaces. We've won New Zealand Best Workplace 3 times, and we've won the the follow-up engagement survey twice as well. So
Wow.
just focusing on values and living and celebrating them, it's just the key to our business, I think, in this culture of engagement we've got.
Oh, that's brilliant. And even how, with that whole setup,
Sure.
other staff are sort of championing each other.
Yes.
That's quite a cool thing, that they're actually putting someone else's name forward to say, I saw this with someone I work with and I thought it was awesome.
People are being recognised for what they do.
Yeah, and they're doing it for each other, and that brings such a cool family connection. So what a cool idea. I like that.
Thank you.
What about anything from a lifestyle perspective? Has there been anything that you can remember changing?
I guess the way we engage our people, what we're trying to do is grow our people as well. So we've placed what's called a DDO philosophy, becoming a deliberately developmental organisation over the top of this culture of engagement. And if you work for a DDO, we expect you to grow as individuals. Philosophy is if the individuals grow, the organisation grows. But if you think about growth, most of our growth comes when we're often given difficult feedback, feedback that's hard to, because feedback is tough for all of us. But from that, you kind of realise often that what you're putting out is not working, and so long as there's no ego involved, you change what you're doing. So what we try and do is grow everyone who works for us, and it helps them so much in their personal lives as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear. What about you, Mel? Business and lifestyle changes?
Business-wise, I get serious FOMO and like to be involved in as many things as possible and go to as many meetings as I can. So one of the biggest changes, but most simple change that we made was we got an EA.
Awesome.
So that has changed my life really, and taken a lot of pressure off, because my world is a lot of meetings, which I absolutely love. Being in with the clients, getting context with our teams, and we've got, how many teams do we now have? CM, SMB, the social club, enterprise. So we've got 4 or 5, teams that it's really important that I'm there and I'm present and I'm present with the clients. So the EA has really taken that pressure off, just organising my life really, which is fantastic.
Awesome.
Another big change is that we have just hired a really senior person from ASB. She headed up ASB Social, and she's come on board as group account director, so she can sort of take that pressure off me, so I can sort of be with Wendy and work on the business rather than be involved in the business all the time.
Totally.
So those were some really big changes that we identified at the Icehouse. I remember last year my smaller team, they set up a Zoom call, and it was called "Is Mel Still Alive?" to check in on me.
Wow.
So it's so those were some big changes that we made to sort of alleviate that pressure, but it also alleviates the pressure off the team as well.
Yeah.
Agency is it's fast moving. We're juggling a lot all the time, so we need to make sure that if the pressure is off me, then the pressure is off the team, which is incredibly important. We want to also change what agency life is like. Old school agency there's a lot of burnout, and we just want to make sure that we're looking after our team. Personally, I've got to say I probably haven't made too many changes, but I'm aware. And I think that's what the course did for me, was to help me be more aware of, okay, I'm getting stressed, or I'm feeling a little burnt out. It's time to rest. It's time to spend time with my family. It's time to say no. So it's time to go out and go for a walk, and just have some me time.
Amazing. So, that's really cool. And actually, I was just thinking while you were talking, I met you when you hadn't, it was the first day of block 1 of your owner manager program.
Yes.
And so to think now you're on the other side of that, and just all that you've learned since like we last chat is pretty awesome. And I love, with other podcasts that I do, just hearing the lifestyle changes, and the awareness is massive that, like, before that moment of block 1 owner manager program, being so unaware of, when I was nearly burnt out and all that sort of stuff, it was actually so important to keep a sustainable business. So very cool, sure. Mel, very, very cool. Going on to, what advice would you give another entrepreneur who's struggling or looking for help? Mel, I'll carry on with you if that's cool.
My biggest piece of advice is, Kiwis want to help. And we are it is literally picking up the phone or making contact with people and leaning in, and asking advice, because that was the beautiful thing about OMP, is that there were so many businesses that I'd never even thought existed, but we all had similar issues, and I was a little bit of a fish out of water being agency, but they were incredible businesses, and all these humble, incredible human beings in my OMP group had all been through similar issues. So lean on people, go to places like the Icehouse and get help, because you're not in it alone, and you will find someone that has been through a similar issue to talk you through and get you through it. That's my biggest
amazing advice. Lean on those people in your world, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I like that.
For sure.
What about you, Shane?
Probably to a great extent what I alluded to. I think every business needs a purpose, and the purpose is not about selling more product or making more money. It's got to be much loftier and engaging than that. In a purpose is, why do we come to work? Why are we here? And the other thing is values. So values is, I just said, how we treat each other. So if you can nail those, and really important to have that foundation there. And then probably underneath that, just be very aware of the need for what you do, your service or product in the market. So is there a clear need for it? Number one, and number two, what's the point of difference? How are you doing it differently than other people? And it means, a fair bit of introspection, pivoting, putting stuff out and trying it. Is it working? If not, okay, how can we adjust slightly? And so that foundation, purpose and values, and then those two things, need in the marketplace, and how are we different?
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. That's a lot of gold right there. Cool. From a more personal element, from owner-manager program and post that, and I know, Shane, this is racking your brain, but what is one thing that you got to do more of after doing owner-manager program?
Probably I got so much, much like you Mel, just the owner-manager course for me was gold, and I love the camaraderie and sharing of information and swapping ideas with other business owners. So I joined a YPO Young Presidents organisation back 16 odd years ago, and YPO, there's a certain sort of size business you need to be in it, but you're surrounded by other business leaders. Every month there's a forum, and there's 8 people in my forum. You get together for 3 to 4 hours, and you talk about what's going on in the business, what's going on in your personal life. There's an absolute confidentiality, and YPO International is just a big organisation. Again, like-minded business owners, so much online, but just this getting together with all different sorts of business owners has been a great one. So I love that, learning from each other.
Yeah, awesome. Great. And from a fresher note, is there, just coming out of owner-manager program, is there something that you now have more time to do or enjoy?
For me, it's to think and have the confidence to do bigger.
Cool.
Think bigger.
Yeah.
So, and really sort of thinking back to when I first started, I always have big ambitions and big dreams, but I now have kind of the time, but more so the capacity to know that we can do it. Yeah. And it's sort of that clarity. So I think OMP has really given me that.
Great.
Probably a different type of answer, but that's definitely something that I have more time to and more capacity to do.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. Cool. Are there any changes, Mel, that people have seen in you since doing the program? And this is a hard one because you sort of want them to be here too, to be like, this is the change I've seen, this is the change, but if there's anything that comes to mind.
I actually slacked Wendy when I saw that, and I was like, have you seen any changes in me? But she's in meetings, so she doesn't come back to me.
I think maybe that awareness side of what you were saying.
Yeah, definitely the awareness. I definitely think that I'm strong. I feel stronger,
cool.
And I think the team and Wendy would probably see that. I've lifted up,
yeah,
and I'm looking out more. And yeah, it's probably that sort of level of confidence. I think. Cool. Hopefully they will see.
Yeah, great answer.
Hopefully.
I'm sure they have. That's cool. What about you, Shane? This is a bit of a harder one for you.
It's been quite a journey over the last 18 years, and I think the thing about whoever we are, you always want to be curious, and so I just have curiosity all the time. Something more recently that's helped me, I learned TM, Transcendental Meditation, in my 20s, and I shared with you, the challenge I had in the early 20s, losing the business and so on.
Yeah.
Learned that, and it just helped me incredibly. I lost it for many years after I established Overland and built that. But 6 or 7 years ago, I got back into it. So, and 18 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, I religiously just close my eyes. bring my mantra and meditate, and I just find it incredibly calming. It calms me down. Great ideas come all the time, and I wouldn't be without it. So, and people certainly say I'm quite a bit calmer as a result of that.
That's cool. I like, you go.
I need to try it.
Yeah.
I looked into it actually.
Did you?
And
I've heard it's
amazing. I saw a butterfly and got distracted.
I've heard it's amazing, but that whole idea of white space, that's sort of what I call like white space. When you sit, there's so many distractions nowadays, right? And when you sit and you just refuse distractions and you just sort of, I think that's such a creative space to be when you're just sitting. And so to hear that you say in that space is when you get so many creative ideas is quite inspiring. Maybe we should start doing it now.
I think we should.
How, in terms of this whole idea of grit goes further together, at the Icehouse you've got your cohort, your group of 20, 25 people, and then you've got the wider network. But your cohort are really your people. You go through those blocks together and you know, all that sort of stuff. Just coming out of the program, how have your fellow cohort members helped you or your business post-program?
Yeah, it really is about grit goes further together because my cohort, I sort of on our last block, thank you, on our last block, I was like, oh my God, these guys are like my brothers and sisters.
So cool.
Like we talk about things that we should not be talking about after meeting each other 5 times, from a personal perspective and also a professional perspective. But since we finished, we're just checking in with each other.
Great.
Like brothers and sisters, like mates. There are one of the guys is getting a kidney transplant, and it's like, holy moly, that's massive.
Yeah.
We're checking in with him, and it's like, hey mate, can we do anything? Can we help out with anything during that time?
Yeah.
One is going through massive changes with his business. Him and I keep wanting to catch up, and we keep missing each other. It's like, just, hey, are you okay?
Yeah, great.
So, it's just that real sort of connection, that really deep connection that we have with each other. And I think it will be like you have deep friendships, and sometimes you won't talk for months and months and months, but when we do, it will be all on.
Yeah, and you're back where you sort of left off.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Probably for me, lost touch with a lot of the guys and girls I did the course with, but I've had an association with the Icehouse ever since, and I feel privileged, and they asked me to come and give a lecture, and often one of the last lectures I've been doing for a few years now, and I always get just the most amazing energy when I spend this hour with a graduating class.
Great.
And my thing is all about story. So I just talk about any business. You've got to have an emotional connection with your people, but especially with your customers. How do you develop that emotional connection? I'm such a believer in story because as humans we're hardwired for story. So that's part of the theme I wrap into what I do, and I just love it.
That's cool. And for you, it's sort of, after all those years, still keeping in touch with the Icehouse from a general sense is pretty amazing. And that you speak on program and speak into the sort of next generation coming up as business owners is totally inspiring. So
I was one of the young ones back then, but
yeah.
I'm not anymore.
It's pretty awesome.
Still are.
Yeah, you still are. We'll give it to you. But yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your conversation today. And there's lots more where this came from in terms of hearing stories of grit from you guys and from other heroes that we have on set today. But yeah, just amazing stories. And I know there's so much more where that came from. So thank you for what you do in your day-to-day lives and for making time to be with the Icehouse today.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you for having us.